story number 1, pruning day. I woke up at 6:30 that morning like I always do. The B&B doesn't run itself, and I've learned that the early hours are when I can move through the house without interrupting anyone. I made coffee, checked the guest ledger, 3 couples, all arriving yesterday, all checking out by 11, and opened the kitchen windows to air out the smell of last night's pot roast. The doorbell rang at 7. I wasn't expecting anyone. I pulled back the lace curtain and saw a commercial truck in the driveway, white with a green logo, landscaping equipment visible in the bed. A man in his 50s stood on the porch with a clipboard. He was wearing work clothes, weathered and practical. I opened the door. He smiled before I could say anything. "Morning. I'm here for the seasonal maintenance. Previous owner set it up for every April. Should take me about 6 hours." I didn't remember seeing anything about this in the property files. I'd owned the place for 3 years. Bought it from an estate sale after the previous owner moved to Florida. But that's the kind of thing that could slip through. Contractors, standing arrangements, the small details that don't always transfer cleanly. "Let me check my records," I said. "No problem. I know the layout pretty well. Been doing this for years." He glanced past me into the foyer casual, like he was just being friendly. "The front hedges need the usual trim. Those window frames on the east side are still rotting. I mentioned that last year. And the compost situation in the back hasn't changed." He knew things. Specific things. The window frames on the east side had been rotting when I bought the place. I'd gotten quotes on replacing them, but kept putting it off. The compost bin was something I'd only dealt with last summer. "Okay," I said. "That sounds right. Just try not to disturb the guests. We have people in rooms 1 through 6. Check out at 11. Wes? I'll stay clear of the front until after that. I'll start in the back." He was professional, efficient. I watched him walk back to his truck and start unloading pruning shears and bags of mulch. The smell of wet earth and decomposing bark drifted up toward the kitchen window. I told myself this was fine, this was normal. Breakfast service started at 8. The 3 couples came down in staggered waves. I served eggs and toast and fruit, made conversation about the hiking trails near the state park, refilled coffee cups. Everything was routine. But around 8:45, while I was clearing plates, I glanced out the dining room window toward the back of the property. He was working near the ground floor guest rooms. Room 3 and room 4, he wasn't trimming hedges. He was crouched down, moving slowly along the foundation, and his face was angled toward the window of room 3. Not looking at the landscaping, looking at the window. I told myself he was checking the condition of the building. That's what contractors do. They assess, they look. He straightened up and moved to room 4. Same thing. Slow, deliberate. Pausing, I turned away and finished clearing the table. Around 9:30, while guests were upstairs packing, he came around to the front of the house. I was in the kitchen, and I heard his boots on the porch. I expected him to ask for something. A place to park, access to the side yard. Instead, he knocked. I opened the door. "Just wanted to let you know," he said. "Checkout's at 11, right? Which rooms are people leaving from today? I want to make sure I'm not running the equipment near them." It was a reasonable question. Considerate, even. "Rooms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I said. "All of them." He nodded. "I'll work the back perimeter then. The east side. Won't bother anyone." He left. I closed the door and stood there for a moment, listening to my own breathing. I was being paranoid. He was doing his job. He was being polite about it. By 10:45, guests were coming downstairs with their luggage. I was at the front desk, processing credit cards, making small talk about their stay. The couple from room 2 left first, then room 5. Room 3 was taking their time. I could hear them moving around upstairs, the sound of a bathroom door closing. The mudroom door, the one that connected the kitchen to the back entrance, opened. I looked up. He was standing in the mudroom, pulling off his boots. He was inside the house. Not knocking. Not asking. Just inside. "Hey," I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Can I help you?" "Oh, just need some water," he said, working in the heat. Dry throat. He was still wearing his jacket. His hands were muddy, and he wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, toward the hallway where the guests had stacked their luggage. "I can get you water," I said. I stood up from the desk. "Let me grab a bottle from the kitchen." "Don't worry about it. I'll just..." "No, I've got it." I moved toward the kitchen, positioning myself between him and the hallway. He didn't move. He just stood there in the mudroom, still half-booted, watching me. I got a bottle of water from the fridge. I handed it to him through the doorway, without opening the door wider. He took it. "Thanks. I'm gonna lock this door now," I said, "for security." During checkout, I didn't wait for him to respond. I closed the mudroom door and turned the lock. My hands were shaking slightly. I told myself it was nothing. He was thirsty. He wanted water. That was all. But I didn't unlock it. I went back to the desk. The couple from room 3 was coming downstairs now, rolling a small suitcase. I processed their checkout. I made conversation about the weather. I watched the mudroom door in my peripheral vision. After about 5 minutes, I heard the back door open and close. I waited another 10 minutes. Then I called the landscaping company listed in my property records. The number was for a place called Green Horizon Landscaping, based in Rutland. "Hi, I'm calling about a service appointment at my property," I said. "A man came this morning for seasonal maintenance. Can you confirm that?" There was a pause. "What's the address?" the woman asked. I gave it. Another pause. "We've never serviced that address. We don't have any record of it." "Are you sure it was us?" I gave her the name of the man. She said she'd never heard of him. I hung up. Through the kitchen window, I watched him load his equipment back into the truck. He was moving calmly, methodically, not rushing, not acting like anything was wrong. He finished loading the mulch bags. He loaded the pruning shears. Then he pulled out his phone. He stood in the driveway, phone raised, and took photographs. The front of the house, the driveway, the mailbox, the windows. He was documenting something. Then he got in the truck and drove away. I locked the front door. I locked the back door. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands folded, trying to think clearly. The police came an hour later. They took a statement. They said they'd look into it. They didn't seem particularly alarmed. People show up at properties all the time claiming to have contracts. Usually it's just a miscommunication. But then the officer asked me about the previous owner. When he'd sold the place, where he'd moved. "I'm not sure," I said. "It was an estate sale. I bought it through a realtor." The officer looked at his partner. "We should check the records." He called it in. There was a long silence. Then he looked back at me. "The previous owner didn't move to Florida," he said quietly. "He died 2 years ago, in this house. Heart attack. The property went through probate." I felt something cold move through my chest. "There's no landscaping contract," he continued. "No standing arrangement. And we're going to need to look at your guest registry." I brought it to him. He flipped through the pages, scanning names and dates. His finger stopped on an entry from exactly 1 week ago, a one-night stay, room 2. The name was different, Michael Patterson instead of whatever name he'd used today. But I knew it was him. The handwriting was the same. The signature was the same. The officer looked at me. He didn't say anything, but I could see it in his face. The understanding. The quiet certainty that something had been wrong, and I'd let it happen anyway. They filed a report. They said they'd increase patrols in the area. They said to call immediately if I saw the truck again. I nodded. I said I would. But I knew he'd be back. Not in a truck. Not with equipment. Just back. Because he'd been here before. Because he knew the layout. Because he knew when people left and when they arrived. Because he knew this house better than I did. And I'd let him walk through it like he owned it. Story number 2, Birding Blind. I got to the wetland observation area at 5:30 in the morning. The parking lot was empty except for my car, which was good. I liked being alone out here, especially during migration season. The light was still gray, that in between time before sunrise, when everything looks like it's holding its breath. I grabbed my camera bag from the passenger seat and checked my lens, 70 to 200 millimeters. Good for the herons this time of year. They'd be coming through in bigger numbers now, and I wanted to get some shots of them in the shallow water, backlit, if I could manage it. The trail entrance had a small kiosk with park information and a map under plastic. I'd been coming here for 3 years, knew the layout well enough that I didn't really need it anymore. But something caught my eye as I started walking. There was a wooden structure about 30 yards down the trail, on the left side near the water. A blind. Proper one, too, with a wooden frame and canvas covering. I'd hiked through here yesterday afternoon around 2 o'clock, and it definitely hadn't been there. The rangers must have installed it overnight. Made sense. The park had been talking about doing formal bird counts this season, and a blind in that location would give a good view of the inlet, where the egrets like to congregate. I nodded to myself, feeling that small satisfaction of things making sense, and kept walking. That's when I noticed the boot prints in the mud near the blind's entrance. Fresh ones, still wet looking, size 11 or 12 maybe. The prints went backward though, back toward the parking area, not deeper into the marsh like the main trail. Probably the ranger who'd installed it, walking back to his truck. I didn't think much about it. I spent the next hour doing what I came to do. Photographed a great blue heron standing absolutely still in the shallows. Got a shot of 3 egrets in formation, wings spread, landing together. The light was getting better, warmer, more golden. I was in the zone, the way you get when you're focused on something, and the rest of the world just falls away. Every few minutes, I heard something behind me. A flapping sound. Canvas, I thought. The blinds covering catching on something. But when I paused and listened, there was no wind. The marsh air was still, almost humid, completely still. The flapping would stop when I stopped moving, and then start again when I started walking. I told myself it was probably just the canvas settling, reacting to the temperature changes as the sun came up. That made sense. Things move in the morning as the air warms. I didn't turn around to look. I don't know why. I just kept walking, kept shooting. By 7 o'clock, I was back at the parking lot. The sun was properly up now, and the lot was still empty. My car was where I'd left it, driver's side facing the tree line. I walked over and opened the door, tossed my camera bag on the passenger seat, and got in. The key went in fine. I turned it. Nothing. No cranking, no clicking, nothing. The battery wasn't dead because the dashboard lights came on when I turned the key to the first position. But when I tried the ignition, there was just silence. I tried again. Same thing. I sat there for a moment thinking, engine trouble, or something simple. I popped the hood and got out. The engine compartment looked normal. Battery terminals were clean. I didn't know enough about cars to diagnose much beyond that, but I could see the distributor cap was missing. Just gone. The space where it should have been was empty. My stomach did something unpleasant. Someone had been at my car. While I was out there with my camera, someone had come to the parking lot and removed the distributor cap. It wasn't something that would fall off. It had to be deliberately taken. I looked around the parking lot. Still empty. The ranger station was maybe a quarter-mile away, back toward the entrance. I could walk there. They'd have a phone or a radio, something. I locked my car even though that felt stupid, like it mattered at this point, and started walking. That's when I saw the blind again. The canvas door was tied open now, flapping gently in air I still couldn't feel. I could see inside from where I was, maybe 20 yards away. There was a sleeping bag in there, rolled up but not put away properly. Scattered around it were food wrappers, granola bar wrappers mostly, and on the interior wall of the blind, pinned to the wooden frame, were photographs. I stopped walking. I stood there in the parking lot and stared at the blind. The photographs were of my car. I could see that much from where I was standing. Different angles. My car from the front, from the side, from behind. Taken from different positions, different times of day based on the light and shadows. The images were small from this distance, but I could see writing on them. Pencil marks on the back of each photo. I didn't go closer. I turned and walked faster toward the ranger station. The station was a small building, tan with a green roof. There was a window on the bathroom side that I knew from previous visits. I grabbed a rock from the landscaping border and broke the glass, reached in, and unlocked the window from inside. I climbed through, my hip catching on the sill, and dropped into the bathroom. It smelled like bleach and old tile. I locked the bathroom door and wedged a wooden trash can under the handle. Then I found the emergency radio mounted on the wall in the main office. It took me a minute to figure out how to use it. I pressed the button and spoke, my voice sounding strange and too loud. This is an emergency. I'm at the Coastal Wetland Observation Area, Ranger Station. Someone's been at my vehicle, and there's someone camping in the bird blind. I need help. The radio crackled. A dispatcher's voice, calm and professional. She asked me to repeat my location and situation. I did. She said a sheriff's deputy was 15 minutes out. I went back to the bathroom and locked myself in. I could see through the small window to the parking lot and the trail entrance. I waited. The deputy arrived in 19 minutes. I watched him get out of his car, hand on his belt, and walk toward the blind. He looked inside for a long time. Then he walked the perimeter, checking the ground. He went back to his car and called something in on his radio. When he came to the ranger station, I unlocked the bathroom door. He was older, maybe 60, with a weathered face. He asked me to show him where my car was and what happened. I walked him through it. He examined the engine compartment, confirmed the distributor cap was gone, and took some photographs with his phone. Then he said, "Come with me." He took me back to the blind. Inside, he pointed to the photographs pinned to the wall. They were all of my car. My silver Honda Civic, taken from different angles, different distances. Some from the tree line, some from across the parking lot. one from what looked like the ranger station area. On the back of each photo, written in pencil, were dates and times. The earliest one was 3 weeks ago. 4:37 in the afternoon. The most recent was yesterday, 6:15 in the morning. Do you know who might be doing this? The deputy asked. I shook my head. I couldn't think. The photographs were meticulous, organized. Someone had been watching my car, documenting it for 3 weeks. Someone had slept in this blind. Someone had removed my distributor cap while I was out there photographing birds, thinking I was alone. The deputy searched the area for 2 hours. He found nothing else. No one in the blind, no one on the trails, no one in the parking lot or the surrounding woods. He ran my license plate, checked if there were any reports or restraining orders I should know about. There weren't. He drove me to the police station in town so I could file a report. I gave them a statement. They took the photographs as evidence. The deputy said they'd increase patrols at the wetland area and suggested I not come back alone for a while. I haven't been back. It's been 8 days now. I keep thinking about those photographs, the way they were arranged, the dates written in pencil on the back. 3 weeks of watching. 3 weeks of documenting my car, my routine, my presence at that specific place on specific mornings. The police haven't found anyone. No arrests, no leads. The distributor cap was never recovered. The sleeping bag and food wrappers were taken as evidence, but they haven't told me what they found or didn't find. I drive past the wetland entrance sometimes on my way to work. I don't stop. The parking lot is usually empty now, but I always look anyway, checking to see if there's anyone there, anyone watching. I keep my car in the garage at night. I lock my doors. I've started taking different routes to places I usually go. I don't know who was in that blind. I don't know if they're still watching, or if they've moved on to someone else, or if they're waiting for me to come back. The photographs are still out there, somewhere in a police evidence locker, and I can't stop thinking about the ones I haven't seen yet. The ones that might have been taken after I filed the report. The ones that might be dated for days I haven't lived through yet. Story number 3, Carpool Detour. I was standing under the awning at the Riverside Commons parking lot, watching the rain come down in sheets. 7:50, 2 in the morning. My regular driver, Marcus, had texted me at 7:35. His daughter was sick. He couldn't make the route today. I understood. It happened maybe once every 2 months. I wasn't worried. The carpool company always sent a substitute. I'd been doing this commute for 8 months, ever since I moved to the suburbs to split rent with my cousin. The hospital was 20 minutes away on a good traffic day. I had time. A silver sedan pulled up at 7:58. 4-door, newer model with the company placard in the window. The same blue and white logo I'd seen on Marcus's car 100 times. The driver was a man I'd never seen before, maybe mid-50s, with thinning hair and a plain polo shirt. He rolled down the window and looked at me. "Sarah," he said. I nodded and got in the back seat. The car smelled wrong immediately. There was this heavy pine air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror, the cheap kind that comes in a little cardboard tree. But underneath it, I could smell cigarettes. Old cigarettes, soaked into the fabric. I'd never noticed that smell in Marcus's car. I told myself the substitute driver probably smoked on his own time. It wasn't my business. "Hospital, right?" the man said, pulling back onto the road without waiting for me to answer. "Sarah Chen, lab technician, 7:30 pickup." I felt something small shift in my chest. Not alarm, exactly. Just a notch of awareness. I hadn't told him my job. The company knew it, obviously, but I hadn't said it out loud. "Yeah," I said. "Thanks for covering." "No problem. I'm doing another route today." This one got added last minute. He merged onto the highway smoothly, heading east toward the hospital. Construction on the main road. You probably heard about that. I hadn't heard about it, but that was fine. He would know. He was the driver. I looked out the window at the rain and the gray morning and tried to settle into the usual rhythm of the commute. My phone buzzed. A text from one of the other lab techs about the shift schedule. I answered it, trying to focus on something normal. We passed the first exit, then the second. The hospital exit was the third one. I watched the green sign approach and watched the driver's hands on the wheel. He didn't slow down. "That's our exit," I said. My voice came out calm. I was proud of that. "Yeah, I know," he said. "There's construction on the hospital road. I'm taking you through the industrial area." Faster route. I didn't know about any construction. But I didn't argue. I just nodded and looked back out the window. The highway was emptier now. It was early enough that most people hadn't started their commute yet. The rain made everything look muted and distant. The industrial area was about 5 minutes away. I'd driven through it before. Warehouses and manufacturing plants, mostly empty looking. Not somewhere I'd want to be alone, but I wasn't alone. I was in a car with a company driver, heading to work. Everything was fine. Everything was fine until I realized we'd been driving for 10 minutes and hadn't passed a single warehouse. "I think you missed the turn," I said. "No, I didn't," he said. He wasn't looking at me in the rearview mirror anymore. I felt my throat tighten. "Can you pull over? I'll just call another car." "It's no problem." He didn't respond. He just kept driving. I tried the door handle. It didn't move. Child lock, of course. Every carpool car had them in the back. "Unlock the door, please," I said. My voice was different now. Smaller. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I drove past your apartment yesterday. Maple Street, right? The one with the blue shutters. Nice neighborhood." Quiet. My hands went cold. I didn't know what to do. I was trying to think of what to do. Call 911, but my phone was in my bag. Scream. But we were on an empty road, and the windows were probably soundproof enough. Fight him, but he was in the front seat, and I was in the back, and I was trapped. I was thinking about this, running through these options like they were all equally impossible, when something else took over. Some part of my brain that wasn't rational or afraid, just desperate. I started thrashing. I made a sound in my throat like I was choking, like something was blocking my airway. I threw my body against the seat, against the door, convulsing. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't controlled. I was faking a seizure and I was doing it badly, but I was doing it hard. "What the?" he said. I kept going. I made more sounds, worse sounds. I hit my head against the window, not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to look real. I was gasping and choking, and my whole body was rigid and shaking. "Jesus Christ," he said. His voice had changed. He sounded panicked. "Jesus Christ. Okay. He swerved. The car lurched to the right and I heard the crunch of gravel. We were on the shoulder. He was fumbling with something, swearing under his breath, and I heard the click of the child locks disengaging. I didn't think. I just moved. I grabbed the door handle and pushed it open, and I was out of the car and running. My shoes were slipping on the wet gravel. Behind me, I could hear him shouting something, but I wasn't listening. I was running toward the truck stop that had appeared, maybe a quarter mile ahead, the one with the big semi-trucks parked in a line. There was an idling semi, its engine rumbling, the driver's side door open. I ran straight for it and pounded on the door frame. The driver, a woman with gray hair and a startled expression, looked down at me. "Help," I said. "Please. Help me." She didn't ask questions. She grabbed my arm and pulled me up into the cab and locked the door. I was shaking so hard, I thought I might actually have a seizure, the real kind this time. I sat in the passenger seat, and I couldn't stop shaking, and I couldn't stop looking out the back window to see if the silver sedan was coming. It wasn't. The truck driver called the police. They came in about 15 minutes. By then, the silver sedan was gone. The officer told me later that the Carpool company had no record of any substitute driver being sent that morning. They checked all their routes, all their drivers. No one was covering Marcus's route. No one had been assigned to me. The placard in the car's window, the one I'd trusted, was reported stolen 3 weeks earlier from a driver named David Park. The police found David's actual car at his house. He was home. He'd never left. They looked for the silver sedan. They checked traffic cameras in the industrial area. The cameras had been broken for months. No one knew how long. No one had reported it. I never found out who the driver was. I never found out what he wanted. The police said they'd keep looking, but I could tell they didn't think they'd find anything. The sedan was gone. There was no description that would help. I was alive. That was what mattered. But I still think about Maple Street sometimes. I think about how he knew which building was mine. I think about him driving past it. I think about how long he might have been planning this, or if it was just random, if he just saw me waiting at the Carpool stop and decided, I don't take the Carpool anymore. I drive myself now. It costs more money. My cousin thinks I'm crazy for it. But every time I see a silver sedan, my hands go cold